Do you remember when Saturday mornings began with the smell of coffee drifting from the kitchen, the soft gurgle of the percolator rising and falling on the stove top, the quiet hum of the radio turning low before the rest of the house woke up? Do you remember lying in bed just a moment longer, listening to cabinets open and close, plates gently stacked, newspaper pages unfolding somewhere beyond the hallway? Back when mornings moved slowly, when nobody rushed the clock, when time hadn't started chasing us yet. Maybe you remember the sunlight sneaking through thin curtains, painting soft stripes across the bedroom wall, the feeling of cool floors on your feet as you finally stood up, the warmth of the kitchen waiting for you at the end of the hallway. You probably remember that quiet excitement too, the feeling that Saturdays carried something special inside them, that the whole day was ready to begin, but nothing needed to hurry yet. There were no alerts tugging at your attention, no buzzing phones on the table, no screens flashing the next thing to do. Just the house waking up slowly, one sound at a time. The soft clink of a coffee cup being placed down, the murmur of voices warming into conversation, the radio drifting between music and morning chatter. Even the air felt different back then, full of calm instead of urgency. And without knowing it in that moment, you were standing at the doorway of memories that would stay with you for the rest of your life. Because life was slower then. Slower in the best ways. Slower meant mornings weren't stolen by the clock. Slower meant people had time to sit down together. Slower meant the world didn't need to be answered immediately. Slower meant you could stay right where you were, holding a warm mug, listening to the radio hum, watching the steam rise from a coffee cups, and feel like that was exactly where you were supposed to be. Before we go any deeper, before we follow this Saturday all the way through its unforgettable moments, if any of this already feels familiar, leave a simple "I remember" in the comments below. Because your memories are woven right alongside this story. And as we walk forward together, you may find that you remember even more than you thought you did. Chapter 1. The kitchen that started it all. Maybe your kitchen looked something like this. A small table pushed up near the window, white lace curtains lifting gently with the morning breeze, sunlight catching the steam rising from chipped ceramic mugs. You can almost see it again. Linoleum floors cool under bare feet, your mother's soft house slippers brushing quietly back and forth as she moved between the stove and the sink. Each step made just the faintest whisper of sound, the kind of sound you only noticed when the rest of the house was still calm. Your dad sat nearby, newspaper unfolded wide across the table, pages crackling softly as he turned them one corner at a time. The headlines meant little to you then. You were more interested in the strange black and white photos or the cartoons printed at the bottom of the page. And all around you, there were the little sounds that made Saturdays feel alive. The gentle clink of saucers as cups were set down, a spoon tapping against the edge of a sugar bowl, a toaster clicking up, two perfect slices rising with a small pop, butter hovering over warm bread for just a second before melting into glowing gold. Maybe you sat swinging your feet beneath the chair, still wearing pajamas that were a size too big, watching the steam curl up from plates like tiny clouds, thinking breakfast was the most important part of the whole weekend. Because, in a way, it was. Breakfast meant everyone was together. No rushing out the door, no school bells calling you away, No schedules pushing people apart, just voices slowly waking up around the table. Your mother asking if you wanted another slice of toast. Your father folding the paper neatly and setting it aside. Maybe a sibling sliding into the last open chair, hair still messy, eyes half closed. And you, right there in the middle of it all, feeling that safe warmth of belonging, wrapped in the simple comfort of routine. You didn't call it family time back then. It was just life. The kind of life that didn't need to be planned because it already knew what it was meant to be. And even now, if you close your eyes, you can almost smell the toast again. Hear the soft hum of the coffee pot. Feel the calm of a house that had nowhere else it needed to go. We didn't have much, but we had enough. Enough food on the table, enough laughter in the room, enough love in the air to carry us through the rest of the day. Those kitchens didn't look fancy. They weren't filled with shiny new appliances or bright enamel colors meant for magazines, but they were filled with something better: togetherness. Every creaking chair pulled close to the table, every cup refilled without being asked, every small conversation about plans for the day, it all stitched the family tighter without anyone realizing it. Because that kitchen wasn't just a place where meals were made, it was where the weekend truly began, where stories were shared, where the day found its rhythm, where childhood gently unfolded one Saturday at a time. And somewhere inside you, those moments never really left. They stayed quiet and warm, waiting for you to remember them again. So tell me in the comments, what did your mom or grandmother used to make on Saturday mornings? Pancakes? Biscuits and gravy? Fried eggs with bacon crackling in the pan? Your memory might be the very one another viewer needs to hear tonight. Chapter 2. Radio and Cartoon Magic.
This is Ken Carpenter welcoming you to The Bing Crosby Show, transcribed from Hollywood.
Moonlight becomes you. It goes with your hair. You certainly know the right thing to wear.
You hear that radio tune now, don't you? Not the song itself, but the way it used to arrive first, slipping through the quiet after breakfast, floating out of the kitchen like something you could almost catch with your hands. It came from that small radio sitting on the counter or by the window, the one with the stiff turning dial that never landed exactly where you wanted on the first try. You twisted it gently, static, crackling like tiny fireworks, a rush of hiss and pops filling the air, until suddenly, there it was, clear, bright, alive, the opening notes of a theme song that felt like it was written just for you. And the room changed. The kitchen stopped being just a kitchen. The living room became a front row seat to imagination. Your feet carried you down the hall on autopilot, past stacked shoes by the door, past the couch with its plastic covering sticking slightly to your legs, until you slid down onto the carpet and stretched out, belly down in front of the TV, your chin in your hands, your elbows pressed into shag fibers or woven mats, your eyes locked ahead like nothing else in the world mattered now. Maybe your television had to warm up for a minute first, a small glowing dot on the screen that slowly widened, colors bleeding in around the edges, the picture sharpening into focus like the TV itself was waking up with you. And if the channels wouldn't quite come in, someone always stepped up. Dad standing behind the TV, one hand on the antenna, The other stretched skyward like he was trying to pull the signal straight from the ceiling. "Better now," he'd call. "You squinted. Almost." A slight twist, a careful tilt, static faded, lines smoothed out, and finally, perfection. Your show, waiting for you like an old friend who always kept their promise. Saturday mornings felt like magic because the stories didn't start immediately. There was always that long, delicious lead-up, commercial jingles that you still remember word for word, colorful cereal ads that looked brighter than the real bowls in front of you, toy commercials that felt more like invitations than marketing. Someday that one will be mine. Between them, radio DJs talking over fading songs, laughing, cracking jokes that seemed aimed directly at sleepy kids wrapped in blankets on the floor. You might not have understood every word, but the warmth of the sound felt like company. Like someone else was awake with you, and your friends, even though they didn't sit beside you, were there too, all sprawled across their own living room carpets up and down the block, watching the same scenes unfold at the same moment, laughing at the same silly jokes, gasping at the same cliffhangers, all synced together before anyone ever knew what streaming meant. It was a quiet sort of togetherness, a shared ritual without coordination, just knowing they were watching this too. And when the first full theme song hit, bold instruments bursting to life, voices or trumpets or pounding drums announcing adventure, your chest did that little jump of excitement you didn't yet have words for. The day was officially starting. You leaned closer to the screen without meaning to, eyes wide, heart steady, so fully present that nothing else existed beyond that rectangle of glowing light. On the rug beside you sat toy cars and action figures, half forgotten from earlier battles, now patiently waiting for the episode to end so new stories could be invented from what you had just seen. Your cereal bowl cooled beside you on the coffee table, milk warming, spoon forgotten, because no one wanted to miss a single second. And somewhere behind the couch, the Saturday morning soundtrack continued, saucers clinking quietly in the kitchen, your mother's slippers brushing across the floor as she refilled coffee, the rustle of that folded newspaper being set aside for later. Kitchen life, humming alongside cartoon fantasy. Two worlds overlapping perfectly, home and imagination, reality and wonder. Maybe it was superheroes soaring between buildings, or clever animals solving mysteries, or wide-eyed kids exploring secret worlds between episodes. Whatever it was, you believed in it completely, because when you're young, belief doesn't need proof. Stories didn't feel like stories. They felt like possible futures. You didn't just watch heroes. You practiced becoming brave. You didn't just hear music. You memorized melodies the way hearts do, not with the brain, but with pure feeling. Some songs even slipped outside the TV, onto cassette tapes, rewound over and over, onto radios turned up in bedrooms while you cleaned later, onto the rhythm of your bike pedals when you raced the afternoon sun. And now, if one of those tunes plays unexpectedly in a grocery store, in a passing car, on some late-night radio station, do you feel it? That small electric pause? That sudden, weightless moment when you're not where you are anymore. You're back on that carpet, eyes up, heart open, waiting for the next scene to appear. Because music remembers for us. And television remembers too. They store moments the way albums store photographs, ready to hand them back to us when we least expect it. Sometimes you can even smell that old living room again when the song hits. The detergent in the couch cushions, the warmed plastic of the TV casing, the faint sweetness of cereal mixed with the earthy dust of carpet fibers baked by morning sun. You closed off the rest of the world not because you wanted to escape, but because the world was already perfect right there. Safe, warm, predictable. Every episode followed rules you trusted. Good would win. Problems could be solved in 22 minutes. Everyone always came back next Saturday, and maybe that's what we loved most. The certainty, the comfort of continuation, the promise that something wonderful waited for us every single weekend morning, without fail. Saturday mornings felt like magic, not because anything unbelievable happened, but because you believed in everything. And today, so many of us still chase that feeling, the feeling of settling in, of briefly letting go, of listening and watching without multitasking, of being small enough to be fully absorbed by joy again. Because part of you never stopped being that kid on the carpet. They're still there, elbows planted, eyes wide, listening for the opening notes of a story they already love, just waiting for the magic to return. So tell me, what was the very first cartoon or radio show you remember rushing to watch? Put it in the comment section. Chapter 3. The chore routine. Before the fun came responsibility. That was the unspoken rule of Saturday mornings, the one every family understood without ever writing it down. Before cartoons ran too long, before bikes were pulled from garages, before shoes scuffed sidewalks, there were jobs to be done. Maybe you remember hearing the call drift through the house. Time to help out. Not shouted, not rushed, just spoken like a simple fact of the day. You probably started with the smallest tasks. Drying dishes with a soft, checkered towel, carefully fitting each plate back into the cupboard so it wouldn't clink too loudly, watching tiny water droplets slide down glass tumblers before they disappeared in your hands. Maybe you folded warm laundry fresh from the line, cotton still carrying the scent of sunshine and breeze, sheets snapping gently as you squared the corners, socks rolled together like tiny promises of order, and somewhere outside, the family car waited in the driveway, already dusty from the week's travels. A bucket filled with sudsy water sat beside it, soap bubbles floating upward and popping in quiet sparkle. You dipped the sponge and dragged it slowly across the hood, watching dull metal turn shiny beneath your hands, each careful circle revealing your reflection clearer than before. And maybe your reflection wasn't just you. It was your parents walking past, siblings chasing one another with dripping rags, neighbors waving over hedges while sweeping front walkways of their own. You weren't alone in your work. None of you were. Saturday chores happened up and down every street, windows being wiped from inside by small hands reaching high, laundry lines stretching across backyards like gentle borders between families, rugs beaten over porch rails sending little clouds of dust into the air. Doorways stood open. Radios played faintly from kitchens. Conversation floated freely between fences. It felt like the whole neighborhood moved together, each home ticking through its small checklist of care. You didn't call it responsibility back then. It was just what you did, because everyone did it. And maybe you remember how strange it felt. That work never weighed heavy on those mornings. The sun was up, the music was playing, there was laughter sneaking through the effort because work felt lighter when we did it together. It still does, doesn't it? Even the smallest jobs had meaning. Drying dishes felt like helping feed the family again. Sweeping floors meant preparing space for the afternoon's running feed. Washing the car felt like polishing something shared, a little family trophy that carried everyone wherever they needed to go. And when the work ended, when the last dish slid into the cupboard, when towels were wrung out and hung neatly over rails, when the final streak disappeared from the windshield, you stood there, hands damp, tired in the good, honest way, feeling something simple but important. Pride, not loud pride, not pride that needed applause. Just the quiet knowing I helped. I did my part. And maybe someone patted you gently on the shoulder or handed you a fresh cold glass of lemonade or simply smiled the kind of smile that said thank you without using words. In that moment, you knew something your younger self could never have put into language. Belonging came from participation, from being needed, from doing the small unseen things that stitched families and neighborhoods together. And even if back then you secretly wished chores would end faster, there's a part of you now that misses the rhythm of those mornings. The steady clap of bed sheets snapped in the air, the whirl of water rinsing down driveways, the hum of radios drifting from open windows, a time when effort didn't compete with entertainment, because both lived side by side. And as you wiped your hands on that checkered towel and turned to finally head toward the waiting fun of the day, you carried with you something bigger than chores ever seemed at the time. You carried the warmth of shared responsibility, shared routine, shared purpose, because work felt lighter when we did it together. Maybe it still would. And before we move on, before the bikes are wheeled out, before the freedom of the open neighborhood stretches wide again, tell me in the comments, what Saturday chore did you always get stuck with? Was it washing dishes, hanging laundry, sweeping sidewalks, or washing that family car until your arms were tired? Your memories deserve to roll right alongside ours. Chapter 4. Rushing outside. Once the chores were done, the sidewalks belonged to you. The screen door would swing open with that familiar creak. The sunlight would rush in like an invitation, and suddenly the whole world felt wide open again. Bikes flew past mailboxes, handlebars rattling, tires humming over cracked pavement and loose gravel. Someone always pedaling harder than the rest, laughing and shouting over their shoulder, "Bet you can't catch me." You remember how your legs pumped faster, how the wind pushed your hair back from your face, how the neighborhood blurred into motion as houses slipped by in lines of white fences and shade trees. Jump ropes snapped against the pavement. 1, 2, 3. The rhythm tapping into the afternoon like its own kind of music. Feet slapped concrete. Laughter bounced off brick walls. The chalk marks on sidewalks smudged as hopscotch games turned into races, and races turned into something else entirely. There were no phones pulling your attention away, no clocks ticking in your ear, no calendar reminding you of anything important, just your name being called out from a friend's porch. "Hey, wait up. Come this way. We're going to the corner." And off you went again. Every street felt endless. Every block became a whole world. The gentle slopes turned into mountain trails for racing bikes. Back alleys became secret shortcuts to nowhere special and everywhere magical at the same time. Empty lots turned into baseball fields with invisible fences and imaginary home run walls. You didn't need permission to explore. You just went. You probably remember the feel of dust on your ankles, the sticky warmth of the afternoon sun clinging to your skin, the way your lungs burned just a little, not from being tired of playing, but from playing so hard you never wanted to stop. Somewhere along the way, somebody's mom handed out paper cups of lemonade, condensation dripping down the sides, the sweetness catching your tongue just long enough before another voice rang out, "Race you to the mailbox." And suddenly the break was over and everyone was running again. Every street felt endless. You knew every crack in the pavement by heart, every driveway you could ramp off just enough to feel brave, every tree with low branches perfect for climbing, even if you only got just high enough to claim victory. You remember sitting on curbs between games, knees scraped and dusty, trading baseball cards or marbles or just stories nobody would remember properly tomorrow. The neighborhood felt alive in those moments, screen doors slamming as more kids joined outside, radios drifting faintly through open windows, dogs barking behind fences excited by all the motion, and somehow you always knew where everyone was. There was no texting to coordinate plans. You just rode until you heard laughter, followed familiar voices echoing down the next block, found your people by sound alone. Every street felt endless. The sun seemed to move slower back then, like it knew it didn't need to rush, like it wanted to hang high in the sky just a little longer so no one would have to go home yet. You remember watching shadows stretch across the pavement, long and thin like clock hands finally waking up. Games slowed, bikes leaned against fences for rest. Jump ropes lay coiled on warm concrete like sleepy snakes. And someone would always say, "One more game." And nobody ever wanted to say no, because you weren't just playing. You were gathering memories without even realizing it. Memories of freedom, of belonging, of days that felt big and wide and full of possibility. Every street felt endless, and even now, decades later, you can still remember exactly where those sidewalks led. So tell me, where did you spend your Saturdays as a kid? Your front yard, the park down the road, or running block to block through the neighborhood until dinner calls finally brought you home? Leave the place that comes to mind in the comments, because somewhere, someone else is remembering the very same path right now too. And as the sun keeps dipping lower on this Saturday, we're walking through together. Those endless streets, they quietly guide us toward the next memory waiting to unfold. Chapter 5, Corner Store Adventures. Maybe a few coins jingled in your pocket as you walked, cold little circles of possibility knocking gently against each other with every step. Not enough money to change the world, but more than enough to make you feel important. You probably remember the sidewalk leading there, don't you? The cracks you stepped over, the warm concrete under thin soles, the way sunlight bounced off store windows long before you reached the door. Maybe you weren't alone. Maybe 2 or 3 friends walked beside you talking all at once, one bragging about what they'd buy, another insisting chocolate beat everything else, someone already complaining their coins were burning a hole in their pocket. Or maybe this was your solo trip, your parents handing you a short list folded small in your hand. Milk, bread, maybe a penny for yourself if there was change left over. You held that paper like a paycheck, a quiet responsibility tucked into your shirt pocket. And then you reached it, the local shop. Paint peeling a little around the edges of the window frames, posters taped crookedly to the glass, soda ads with smiling faces, comic book covers bright enough to stop you mid-step. You pushed open the door, and that little bell rang overhead, clear and cheerful, like it was announcing your arrival just for you. The air shifted as you stepped inside, suddenly cooler, denser, a swirl of smells all blending together, fresh bread stacked on metal shelves, sugary candy scents floating up from glass cases, a hint of floor cleaner and cardboard boxes tucked behind the counter. Your shoes tapped softly across worn tiles as you walked in. Straight ahead, candy behind glass, rows and rows of color, wrapped caramels lined in tight bundles, peppermint rounds flashing red and white, gummies glowing under bright bulbs, chocolate bars stacked end to end with bold lettering shouting their names. You leaned forward a little, eyes scanning everything, already weighing big choices with small money, 2 pieces or one bigger treat, chocolate or taffy, and could you spare enough left over for a soda? Those decisions felt important. Your finger traced the glass as you studied the options, breathing in faint sweetness even though the candies were sealed tight. And then you heard the hum, the soda cooler, a steady mechanical vibrato tucked into the background of the shop, constant, comforting, promising relief from the heat waiting outside. You lifted the heavy lid, and cool air rushed up toward your face, fog lifting from glass bottlenecks lined in perfect rows. Orange, grape, root beer, cola, each bottle slick with condensation, each one shining like a tiny treasure chest waiting to be claimed. You wrapped your fingers around one, the glass startlingly cold, damp enough to leave wet rings in your palm. You brought it to the counter, slid it forward over scratches left from years of kids before you. Behind the counter, the shopkeeper already knew the routine. No rush. The opener hooked under the cap, a crisp metallic pop, and the soda came alive. That hiss felt bigger than it was, like the sound of summer itself uncovering. Maybe you took your first sip right there, the fizz climbing up your nose, the sugar lighting up your tongue, your teeth aching just a little from the cold. If you were with friends, someone leaned in immediately. Let me try. And that bottle made its slow journey through every hand, each sip careful not to take too much, laughing when someone tilted it too far and nearly spilled. Around you, the store moved quietly. Paper bags whispered as bread was tucked away. Coins clinked into the register. A handheld radio behind the counter murmured about the weather and local news. No one hurried. No one did anything fast. And for that moment, you weren't a child waiting for something later. You were a part of the world right now. Maybe you wandered toward the counter display, a bouncing ball sealed in cardboard, tiny plastic figurines, pinwheels waiting for someone to breathe life into them outside. Maybe you studied the comic rack, pages promising heroes and adventures you'd play out by dinner time. Maybe you stood right where you were and just took it in, feeling older than you were, feeling capable, because here you were, handling money, making choices, living small independence one coin at a time. Eventually, though, it was time to head out. Brown paper bag folded tight around your purchases, soda bottle sweating gently against your leg as you walked. The door opened again, and the bell rang once more. Sunlight spilled over your face almost too brightly for a moment. Out on the sidewalk, the neighborhood sounds returned. Bike chains clicking as someone sped past. Jump ropes snapping pavement in steady rhythm. Voices drifting from halfway down the block calling your name. And the store faded behind you, that tiny building holding huge memories. Maybe you walked back with friends, the sugar already kicking in, plans flying fast about what to trade, what to snack on first, how long you could stretch that soda before it disappeared completely. Or maybe you walked alone, keeping the bag hugged carefully to your chest, not wanting anything to spill before you reached the kitchen. Your parents smiled when you handed it over. They thanked you, just one word, quick and gentle. They probably didn't realize what it meant. But to you, that walk was not small. It was freedom measured in sidewalk squares, confidence built with jingling change, a moment where the world felt open and you felt ready to explore it. And even now, you can probably still feel the cool weight of that soda bottle in your hand. See those candies glowing behind thick glass. Hear that bell ringing bright and clean above the door. Taste the fizz rising in your throat after the very first sip. So tell me, did you walk to the store with friends? Or did your parents send you on your own? Chapter 6. Family Car Rides. When the family packed the car, it always felt like something special was about to begin, even if we were only heading a few miles down the road. You remember it, don't you? The back door standing wide open while someone folded the last blanket just right. Paper bags of snacks stacked carefully near the cooler. The faint smell of sunscreen mixing with gasoline drifting on the warm air. The trunk lid came down with that solid thump that seemed to seal the promise of the day. Windows rolled down, elbows resting on the door frames, the breeze rushing in as soon as the car eased out of the driveway. Every ride felt like a little adventure. You probably remember claiming your seat the moment the doors unlocked, racing your brothers and sisters to the back bench, sliding across hot vinyl, planting yourself right next to the window so you could watch the houses glide by. Maybe you pressed your palm against the glass, leaving little foggy prints as fields turned into neighborhoods, and neighborhoods turned back into wide open sky. And maybe your parents sat up front in quiet conversation, your mother pointing out places she recognized, your father tapping the steering wheel in time with the radio, while the low hum of the engine blended with the sound of wind streaming through open windows. Those family car rides weren't hurried. Nobody was checking the time every few seconds. No one was calculating traffic patterns or staring at phones. You just sat there, watching. Power lines stretched endlessly overhead like a dotted path guiding you forward. Road signs flashed past, towns with names you hardly noticed at the time, but somehow never forgot. Occasionally, the car slowed to wave at a neighbor passing in the opposite lane, both drivers lifting fingers from the wheel in that quiet, mutual greeting that seemed to say, "We're all heading somewhere today." And you always knew when you were starting to get far from home. The smells changed. The air started to feel different as trees gave way to farmland, or farmland gave way to small towns filled with storefronts, barber poles, and striped awnings. The farther you went, the more the road itself became part of the story, and maybe you leaned forward from the back seat asking, "How much longer?" And someone always answered the same way, "Not much longer now." Even when it still felt like a lifetime away, you'd shift positions, try to get comfortable against the warm vinyl, lay your head against the door where the rhythm of the road gently rocked you, listening to the tires whisper over pavement like a lullaby that never quite lulled you to sleep. The radio was always there, soft music drifting through the cabin, baseball games crackling in between static, or weather updates read calmly by voices that sounded like neighbors too. Songs came and went, but the melody of those rides stayed the same. Steady motion, shared silence, and the peaceful feeling that you were all in it together. Sometimes nobody spoke at all, just the sound of breathing, the hum of the motor, the wind brushing past open windows, and the quiet comfort of knowing that everyone you loved was right there beside you. You didn't need anything else. Because even short trips felt big back then. A drive to Grandma's house felt like crossing state lines. An afternoon picnic meant packing the car like you were settling in for a long journey. And every stop was its own little adventure. Pulling into gas stations with globe pumps glowing in the sun, the bell dinging as rubber tires rolled over the hose. Someone hopped out to stretch legs while the windshield got a quick wipe. Kids wandering over to the soda machine while parents chatted with the attendant as if they were old friends. Then back into the car, windows down again, the road unfolding ahead like a ribbon waiting to be followed. Maybe you remember arguing over what station to play. Maybe you remember counting license plates from different states, or trying to spot license plate letters that matched the start of your name. Maybe you sang along to songs even when you only knew half the words. Or maybe you just watched quietly, letting the scenery soak in. Barns leaning toward the fields, cows grazing behind low fences, kids pedaling down side roads with baseball gloves hanging from handlebars. Those rides were our classrooms in a way we didn't understand yet. We learned how wide the world was just by watching it roll past the windows. We learned patience while sitting still. We learned togetherness by being packed so closely into one little traveling world. Nothing between us but shared space and shared time. And most of all, we learned how to be with family. Because in those cars, there wasn't anywhere to disappear to. No separate rooms, no screens to retreat behind, just voices, laughter, teasing, stories, silence, all mixing together into something deeper than entertainment. It was connection. You felt it even when nobody said it out loud, especially then. And maybe you didn't understand how special it was at the time. After all, it was just another ride, just another road, just another sunny afternoon slipping by. But now, years later, you can see it clearly. Those simple drives did something to us. They tied our memories together mile by mile. They taught us that the journey itself could feel like the destination. They left us with images that never faded, sunlight flashing off chrome trim, shadows dancing across dashboards, your mother reaching back to hand you a sandwich wrapped in wax paper, your father glancing into the rearview mirror with that small, steady smile, knowing everyone was right where they needed to be. And maybe now, when you get into a car, even after all these years, some small part of you still waits for that same feeling to return, that gentle excitement, that quiet togetherness, that sense that the road holds something good ahead, even if you don't quite know what it is yet. Because once upon a time, every family car ride felt like a promise of discovery, a promise of shared moments, a promise that being together was all the adventure you really needed. You know, if these memories feel like home to you, this channel was made for you. We share stories just like this every week. Small moments we all lived, but don't always get the chance to revisit. And if you want to keep taking these walks through memory with us, finding pieces of your story woven into each chapter, tap subscribe and stay with us, because these memories deserve to be remembered and shared together. Chapter 7. The soundtrack of the day. Music played everywhere, not just from radios, not just from record players or cassette decks resting on crowded shelves. It felt like music lived in the air itself, floating from open windows, spilling out of parked cars at the curb, leaking from screen doors that creaked as neighbors stepped inside for lunch. It drifted down quiet streets like an invisible thread, stitching the whole neighborhood together. You could hear it before you saw where it came from, a soft melody rolling out of someone's kitchen while dishes were being washed, a crackling country tune from a garage radio where a dad tuned an engine with the hood raised, a love song echoing faintly from a second-story bedroom, the kind played low enough that it felt private, even as it slipped through the open window into the world outside. Sometimes, the first sound you noticed wasn't the song itself. It was the gentle static before it, that tiny hiss as the dial turned, the click. Then suddenly, a voice. And right behind the voice, the song you didn't know yet would become part of you. Music had a way of sneaking into the moment. You didn't sit down and listen the way people talk about listening now. You lived with it. It played while you emptied grocery bags onto the counter. It floated while you kicked a ball down the sidewalk. It followed you on bike rides, the radio drifting from somewhere behind you like it was chasing the afternoon. It was there when the family car rolled down the highway, windows open wide, wind lifting the edges of someone's hair. The radio loud enough for everyone to hear, but never loud enough to drown out laughter or conversation. The songs became part of your day without asking permission, and before you even knew it, they became part of your memory. There were songs tied to the smell of sunscreen on your skin, songs tied to the sound of cicadas beginning their evening chorus, songs that played while cousins ran through sprinklers in the yard, water droplets catching the sun like tiny prisms, songs tied to late afternoon naps where the radio hummed softly in the background while the house went quiet. Sometimes you didn't even know the names. You just knew the feeling, that swell in your chest when the chorus came back around, that warmth when the melody curled around you like a blanket, and that strange moment when the verse felt like it was written just for you, even if you were too young to understand most of the words yet. Music didn't match moods, it created them. A slow song could make the world feel gentle. A cheerful tune could turn an ordinary sidewalk into a parade route. A fast, joyful rhythm could make cleaning the house feel less like a chore and more like a game. And once in a while, a song would stop you in your tracks. Maybe it reached you through a neighbor's open window as you passed by. Maybe it poured from a passing car that slowed at an intersection beside you. Maybe it hovered from a radio sitting on the porch steps while you sat on the curb, knees pulled to your chest. And for a few seconds, everything felt completely still. Just you and the music. Even now, decades later, the magic still works. One note, one lyric, one familiar beat, and suddenly the present melts away. You're not wherever you are anymore. You're back on that warm sidewalk under a purple-orange sky. You're back in the passenger seat, fingers resting on the edge of an open window. You're back sitting cross-legged on the carpet while sunlight poured across the living room floor. Isn't it strange how memory works like that? Photographs fade, voices blur, faces soften with time. But songs stay sharp. They remember for us. They keep entire scenes locked inside a melody, waiting quietly until the moment we hear them again. And when they come back, they don't return alone. They bring everything with them: the smells, the faces, the places. The exact way the air felt in that season of your life. That's the thing about the soundtrack of the day. It never stopped playing. It was always recording, even when you weren't paying attention. Every ordinary moment had a song hiding inside it. And years later, those hidden songs are still waiting in the depths of your memory to remind you who you were when the world felt bigger, lighter, and slower. Maybe there's one song that always takes you back faster than the others. Maybe it's the one that played when the family car turned onto the highway for your favorite trip. Maybe it's the one that drifted from your dad's radio as he worked in the garage. Maybe it's the song your mom used to hum while folding laundry at the kitchen table. Or maybe it's the one that played on Saturday afternoons when the sun slanted low and the whole day felt golden. Does that song still live somewhere inside you? Does it still pull the same smile from your lips before you can stop it? Does it still wrap your heart in that soft, familiar ache? The one that somehow feels good and bittersweet at the same time? Because every song from your youth is more than music now. It's a doorway, a bridge, a time machine, and when you step through it, for just a moment, you're home again. Before we move forward, before the day drifts any farther into memory, drop the name of a song from your youth that always takes you back. Chapter 8. Saturday. Dinner tradition. Dinner meant the family gathered again, after a whole day that felt like it stretched in all the best directions. Morning routines, radio laughter, sidewalk adventures, corner store treasures, car windows rolled down, music drifting through open homes. Eventually the daylight began to soften, and everyone slowly found their way back to the same place. Back to the kitchen, back to the table, back to one another. You might remember the sound before anything else. The scrape of folding chairs unfolding from the closet, their legs clicking open one by one against the linoleum floor. Plates stacked and set carefully at each place. Silverware counted out loud, not because someone needed to count, but because that rhythm made the room feel alive. Napkins folded into simple squares or tucked into drinking glasses. The smell came next. Something comforting simmering on the stove. Fried chicken crackling gently in a deep pan, or a pot of stew thick with potatoes and vegetables. Maybe meatloaf browning slowly in the oven while gravy warmed on the back burner. Whatever it was in your home, it always smelled like more than food. It smelled like everyone being together again. Maybe your mother moved easily between stove and counter, apron tied at her waist, turning chicken with practiced hands or stirring a pot that she had made 1,000 times before. Maybe your father stood nearby, tasting gravy with a spoon and nodding politely as if it needed no improvement at all. And if you were small, maybe you hovered at the edge of the kitchen, hoping to steal a roll early, or waiting for permission to lick the beaters if dessert was already underway. Dinner wasn't rushed. There was no frantic checking of clocks No one watching screens, no one feeling late, even if the sky outside was already beginning to deepen into twilight. Time had a softer pace then. You might remember being called to wash up. Hands under warm tap water. Soap bubbles floating down into the sink. Fingers scrubbing a little harder than necessary because dinner meant grown-up manners and clean hands mattered. And when everyone finally sat down, folding chairs tucked knees under the table, elbows arranged politely back to your sides, plates slid forward, steam curling upward into expectant faces. Someone said grace quietly. Sometimes everyone bowed their heads together. Sometimes it was one quick, thankful sentence spoken without ceremony. But either way, dinner meant coming home. Coming home from the day. Coming home from noise and motion and running sidewalks. Coming home to each other. The clatter of forks against plates filled the room like gentle music. Conversation rose slowly, not loud laughter yet, just soft catching up. Someone asked about the bike ride earlier. Someone mentioned how the car smelled warm after the drive. Someone laughed, remembering the jingle of change at the corner store. And all the small stories of the day found a seat at the table. You might remember how food tasted different back then. Not because ingredients were rare or fancy, most meals were simple, but because you were eating in a room filled with voices you loved. Chicken tasted richer with laughter nearby. Mashed potatoes tasted warmer when passed hand to hand. Bread seemed softer when torn and shared. Every bite was tied to the feeling of belonging. Someone always reached for seconds. Maybe it was you, hoping no one noticed the extra scoop of potatoes. Maybe it was your father, who always seemed to deserve one more helping after a long week of work. Maybe a mother, finally sitting down, taking those quiet extra moments for herself. And dessert. Dessert felt like a promise kept. Pies sliced carefully. Apple, cherry, or pecan, depending on the season. Cakes that leaned a little from uneven layers, held together with thick frosting. Bowls of sliced fruit topped with whipped cream that melted too quickly. Plates shifted again. Coffee poured for the adults. Milk refreshed in the kids' glasses, and voices grew lighter. There was storytelling at this moment. Old family memories retold. The same jokes repeated year after year, and you heard them again, but still laughed as if it were the first time, because repetition was comfort. Dinner wasn't about novelty. It was about familiarity, about knowing what came next, and loving that it would always be there. Eventually, forks rested empty. Bellies felt full. Chairs leaned back slightly as people stretched and sighed, satisfied not just by food, but by togetherness. Someone gathered plates. Someone stacked leftovers into containers or wrapped them with foil. Someone wiped the table down while humming, and someone else dried dishes with a checkered towel. And even that cleanup felt calmer than work had earlier in the day, because cleanup after dinner meant the hardest part, the separation, was still hours away. No one was rushing off yet. The family still had the evening together. Outside the windows now, porch lights flickered on across the neighborhood. The sky turned indigo, and cicadas began their steady chorus. You might remember that cozy weight settling in your chest, that deep, peaceful feeling that only came once the day was complete. Not because the day was over, but because everyone was finally where they belonged. Dinner meant coming home. It meant the outside world could wait. It meant all wandering ended right back at the table. And maybe years later, When you smell something cooking that echoes a dish from long ago, fried chicken, warm bread, a pot of stew, something soft stirs inside you, and you're suddenly standing in that kitchen again, feeling the chair beneath you, hearing the familiar voices in the room, sensing the quiet safety of being surrounded by people who knew you completely. Dinner meant coming home, and maybe that's why meals still sit so close to the heart. Because every dinner since, in some quiet way, has been an attempt to return to that table. So tell me, what meal reminds you most of home? Chapter 9. Evening wind down. The porch light flicked on, that warm yellow glow spilling across the steps and pooling onto the yard like a gentle welcome. The kind of light that meant the day had done all it needed to do. Crickets sang, their steady rhythm rising up from the grass and hedges, weaving into the hum of distant traffic and the muted laughter drifting from neighboring porches. And the quiet settled in. That soft, unannounced quiet that never arrived suddenly. It simply eased its way into the evening, like a deep breath the whole neighborhood seemed to take together. After dinner, dishes were stacked and rinsed. After chairs were pushed back from the table, after last crumbs were brushed from the kitchen counter, the house changed its mood. The windows were cracked open to let in the cooling air. Curtains lifted and fell with the faint breeze. Someone reached to turn off the brighter overhead lights, leaving only lamps glowing softly in the corners of the living room. Maybe you remember stepping outside barefoot, the porch board still warm from the sun, the wooden rail cool under your palms. You leaned out just enough to look down the street, where porch lights blinked on one by one, tiny beacons saying everyone had made it home safely. Some neighbors were already settled into rocking chairs, the gentle creak of wood keeping time with the crickets. Others sat on porch steps, talking low and slow, no need to hurry a conversation. Kids who had raced bicycles all day now moved quieter. Chalk drawings half faded on sidewalks. Jump ropes abandoned in neat coils near the fence. You might have watched fireflies begin their flickering dance, tiny bursts of light swelling into the first darkness of night, each glow feeling like a private secret only children truly noticed. And in that moment, nothing tugged at your attention. No rush to be somewhere else. No schedule pulling you forward. Just the soft permission to be exactly where you were. Sometimes you stayed inside. You might remember the radio being turned just low enough, voices drifting between songs, news headlines delivered in calm, careful tones, ball games crackling through static from faraway cities. Your father sat in his favorite chair, newspaper folded across his lap, not reading anymore, just resting. Your mother quietly folded laundry at the dining table, the soft snap of fabric and gentle stacking of towels blending into the rhythm of the evening. You lay sprawled on the living room carpet, the faint hum of the television warming the room. The screen glowed black and white images, a variety show host mid-joke, a Western hero riding across endless plains, or a family sitcom that everyone pretended not to watch too closely, yet no one missed a moment. You didn't need the sound turned loud. The light alone felt comforting. It illuminated the furniture, threw playful shadows on the walls, and wrapped the room in that familiar sense of togetherness. Maybe you drifted between inside and out. 1 minute leaning on the porch post watching the stars appear. The next curled up near the radio, resting your chin in your hands as the music carried stories of heartbreak and hope between songs. Every part of the evening worked together. Outside, calm; inside, comfort; the air cooling on your skin; the steady pacing of voices; the faint clatter of dishes drying on the rack in the kitchen; the soft scrape of a rocking chair slowing to a stop. Even your own breathing seemed to fall into rhythm, because once evening arrived, everything slowed. There was no performance required anymore, no chores left to finish, no obligations tugging at you. Saturday had given all it needed to give. Now it asked only for quiet presence. You might remember yawning without even realizing it, stretching your arms overhead as your eyes grew heavy. Maybe someone gently reminded you, it's almost bedtime. And while you nodded, you weren't quite ready to let go of the day, so you lingered longer than you needed to. One more moment outside under the stars, one more radio song, one more story told on the porch, one more look at the street before the world tucked itself in for the night. Because even then, even as a child, you knew something special was ending. Not just Saturday, but the feeling the day carried. That feeling of space, of safety, of time not pushing forward too fast, and you wanted to hold on to it just a little longer. Sometimes you remember lying in bed afterward, windows open wide to let the night in. The cricket's chorus drifted through the screen. A distant train horn echoed softly beyond the houses, long and low, carrying stories you didn't yet understand. And in the dark, your mind replayed the day like a highlight reel. The laughter at breakfast, the cartoons on the floor, the chores done side by side, the freedom in the streets, the coin jingling at the corner store, the car rides with elbows on doors, the songs riding the breeze, the dinner table full of voices, all settling gently into memory, not as anything dramatic, not as history, just as your life, ordinary, perfect in its simplicity. And while you drifted toward sleep, you didn't label it nostalgia. You didn't know you were witnessing something precious. You simply lived it, and that was enough. The porch light outside remained glowing late into the night, standing watch as families turned in, children slept, radios clicked off, and televisions faded to static, snowy screens. Every house offered its own version of peace. Every street glowed softly, and the world rested for a while. You rested too, wrapped in the quiet of a Saturday that had asked nothing more of you and had given everything in return. So tell me, as the cricket sang and the porch lights flicked on, how did you wind down Saturdays? Did the radio stay playing until sleep came? Did the TV glow until your eyelids couldn't stay open? Or did you sit outside, watching fireflies fade into the night, holding on to the stillness for just one more beautiful moment? Chapter 10. Look how far we've come back then. None of us knew how fast everything would change. We didn't wake up thinking the world was moving forward too quickly. We didn't wonder what tomorrow would look like decades down the road. We didn't try to hold on to moments because we didn't know we would ever need to. We only knew how safe those simple days felt. Maybe you remember it the same way. Standing in the driveway as the evening cooled, the smell of baked pavement still hanging softly in the air, the sound of screen doors closing down the street one by one as families moved inside for the night. Porch lights glowing like quiet beacons, telling you it was time to come home. You weren't thinking about the future then. You were thinking about the next glass of iced tea, the next radio song drifting through an open window. The way your family laughed in the kitchen while someone rinsed dinner dishes. No one talked about the good old days because they weren't the good old days yet. They were just life. You didn't know how different the world would become, how sidewalks would grow quieter, how front porches would stop filling up at dusk, how people would stop knowing the names of everyone on their street. You didn't know phones would one day replace letters, that radio voices would fade beneath endless screens, that moments once taken slowly would become things we rushed between. All you knew back then was that Saturday night felt peaceful. Maybe you remember lying in bed, listening to the low murmur of your parents' voices drifting through the hallway, the faint creak of a rocking chair on the porch outside your window, the hum of a late-night radio show playing somewhere down the block. You remember the sound settling into the house like blankets, warm, steady, familiar. And maybe you remember how secure it felt, knowing everyone you loved was under the same roof. That counted for something. You didn't know the world would become faster. You didn't know schedules would become crowded. You didn't know noise would begin to replace quiet. You simply lived inside that calm, where laughter had room to echo, where conversations weren't hurried, where no one checked the time before starting a story. And that's what makes these memories stay so vivid now. Because when you think back on Saturday nights like that, you don't just remember the places. You remember how it felt to belong. You remember the comfort of familiar routines, the same dinner table, the same radio programs at the same time each evening, the same bedtime rituals that never needed to change to feel right. Maybe you remember your parents quietly talking in the kitchen after you were sent to bed. Maybe you peeked down the hallway listening to their low laughter over clinking cups. Maybe you remember the smell of dish soap mixing with the final traces of supper drifting through the house. Or maybe what you remember most is the stillness that came when the day was finally finished, when there was nothing left to do, nowhere left to go, just rest, just being. And as the years passed, you didn't notice the speed creeping in. Days slowly became fuller. Weeks became shorter. Holidays began to arrive faster than the seasons seemed to change. The sounds grew louder. The silence grew shorter. Somehow, the calm you once lived inside became something you had to search for. But even though the world changed, those moments never left you. They stayed folded into memory, waiting for quiet moments to be opened again. And now, decades later, you can still step right back into them. You can still close your eyes and hear that radio hum, still smell the evening air drifting through half-open windows, still feel the safety of a world where time wasn't always pushing forward. Those memories didn't disappear. They settled deeper into your heart, where the truest things always remain. Because the truth is, those simple days shaped you. They taught you patience. They taught you how comfort could come from routine, how joy didn't need to be loud to be real, how happiness often came wrapped in ordinary moments. And even though everything around us changed, those lessons stayed steady. So when you feel a quiet longing stir, when you pause over songs from the old days, when you catch yourself remembering evenings like the ones we've shared tonight, it's because something in you is reaching back to that calm, reaching back to the feeling of safety, back to the time when the world felt small enough to understand and big enough to explore without fear. Back to when your biggest concern on a Saturday night was whether your favorite radio show would be playing, or if you'd be allowed to stay up a few minutes longer. Back to a time when growing older didn't yet feel so fast, and life was slower then. Slower in how people spoke, slower in how neighbors lingered when they talked, slower in how families stayed close around the dinner table and late-night radios, slower in a way that let memories settle gently into the heart instead of rushing past unnoticed. And even though the years kept moving forward, those quieter rhythms never stopped living inside you. They still hum there, soft and steady, just under the surface of everyday life, waiting to be remembered, waiting to be felt. Because no matter how far we've come, those simple days, those Saturday nights, those peaceful evenings filled with nothing but radios, voices, and warm lamplight still belong to you. They always did. They always will. And somewhere deep in the memory of your heart, you know it's true. Life was slower then. Final loop closure. You can almost smell that coffee again. Hear the radio humming low in the corner of the kitchen. Feel the gentle quiet of a Saturday morning wrapping itself around the house like a soft blanket. You don't even have to close your eyes. It comes back on its own. That familiar warmth, that stillness before the day unfolded, that feeling that nothing in the world was rushing you yet. You're standing there again for just a moment, watching sunlight drift across a worn table, hearing the soft shuffle of slippers on the floor, feeling the promise of the whole day waiting quietly ahead. And what you realize now, it never really left you. That Saturday morning feeling still lives inside you. It shows up when a song from long ago sneaks onto the radio, when the smell of coffee drifts unexpectedly into the air, when an evening grows quiet enough to remind you of old porch lights flicking on at dusk. It lives in the way certain neighborhoods still slow your steps, in the way your heart softens when you pass an old storefront window or hear children laughing in the distance, because the memories were never tied to a place. They were tied to how life felt. Slower, together, steady, safe. Nobody knew they were creating something lasting back then. They were just living the days as they came. Saturday breakfasts, chores that led to freedom, bike rides that lasted until the sun leaned low, simple dinners around tables pulled close, quiet evenings where the world finally rested. And without realizing it, you carried every one of those moments forward with you. They became the pieces of comfort you still reach for when the world feels heavy. They became the sounds and scents and scenes that still bring peace when you least expect it. Those Saturdays shaped you. They shaped your idea of home, of belonging, of what it feels like to simply be present. Life was slower then, and that slowness gave the heart room to breathe, room to connect, room to remember. And that's exactly why places like this exist today, so we can walk those memory roads together again. If these moments we share here feel familiar, if they feel like home to you, then Golden Memory Hour was made for you. Every week we gather here to revisit the small moments that shaped our lives. The mornings, the meals, the car rides, the songs on the radio, the memories that quietly built who we became. And if you don't want to miss these gentle walks through the past, subscribe to Golden Memory Hour and stay with us so we can keep remembering together. because these stories deserve to be shared, not only with those who live them, but with everyone who still carries them inside. Before you go, take one last look back. What did your Saturdays hold? Was it cartoons on the rug, running the streets on your bicycle, or sitting on the porch as evening drifted in? Was it simple meals shared around a small table? Was it hearing laughter spill through open windows? Share your favorite childhood Saturday memory in the comments. Your stories. Keep this golden hour alive, and maybe someone else out there needs to remember tonight too.